Good morning. I've decided to come and have a bit of a knitting break. I've just had a cup of tea. I seem to be always having cups of tea. I don't really drink that much tea, maybe a couple a day, but it just seems like it because I keep pausing for cups of tea when I'm recording. No, I've been kind of pootling about doing bits and pieces this morning. I picked another basket full of apples. I did a really nice apple crumble the other day actually. I changed up the kind of the basic recipe. So like an apple crumble, you would have like cooking apples and sugar in the bottom, and then crumble mix is standard mix is 8 ounces of self-raising flour, 4 ounces of butter, 4 ounces of granulated sugar. So instead I put some sultanas, golden raisins, in with the apples and some mixed spice and some extra cinnamon and ground cloves. And then in the crumble I substituted out the white granulated sugar for brown demerara sugar, so you know, something that's large and grainy rather than the fine stuff. It was lovely. The crumble topping came out fabulous. The filling was a little bit overspiced in my opinion, and too many sultanas. John really liked it. I would put less in next time, but the crumble topping with the demerara was lovely jubbly. But I'm going to make a different type of pudding today. All I seem to do is eat pudding at this time of year. But I'm going to make, I don't know if I make today or tomorrow, but I'm going to make, I think I'm going to do one with the apples in the bottom, and instead of having crumble top, I think I'm going to make some like cake mixture, like some sponge mix, not sponge mix, but you know, just kind of a regular cake mix, and spread that on the top and bake that. So it'll be like an apple sponge pudding, kind of. I was also looking at my old recipe book, and there was a recipe for rhubarb Betty. I thought I could make an apple Betty. So apple Betty uses a mixture of breadcrumbs and suet rather than flour. It has other things in as well, but it's like a suet, it's not even a sponge mix with having the breadcrumbs, but I guess when it cooks it kind of comes out that way. And you layer like fruit rhubarb, and then you kind of topping mix, and then rhubarb and topping mix. Well, I was thinking I'd make an apple version with apple and suet mix, but I could also, instead of using breadcrumbs, I could just use flour and make like a dumpling mix. Or maybe I could just do a dumpling mix, like a cobbler topped apple pudding maybe. Just trying to think of different things to use the apple. I will start to stew some down and freeze it before too long, because we'll be getting a bit tired of apple crumble. We're not usually, we don't usually have pudding every day, but it just seems at this time of year there's so much apples coming out the garden, and a lot of the like windfalls and what have you can't really store them. You can stew them and freeze them, that's about it. So I think I'll start stewing them, but I need to use up some bits in the freezer first, because I just, it is full. It is. I'd probably have enough room for, I don't know, a couple of small containers, and that would be about it. I have some bits and pieces I could probably use up. I know I've got a bag of rowan berries in there that have been in there since last autumn, because I haven't picked any this year. So I've either got to make rowan jelly, which we don't really use, or I did see a recipe for rowan berry chutney, which I might do instead, because there's more chance of using up rowan berry chutney than rowan jelly. I'm not sure. I'll see how I feel. So that'll create a little bit of space. I think there's some blackberries in there as well. I could probably make some apple and blackberry jam, although I have tons of apple and blackberry jam left over from making it last year. But it could be done, and then I can use that to make jam tarts or something later down the line, or fill a cake or something. So last night I knit a couple more inches on this sleeve, and I've picked up the stitches on the second sleeve and I've started it in that, knitting that. And I did wear the yarn this morning after having done those 2 inches, and how much have I done on this sleeve? Nearly 2 inches on this sleeve. And I've used 14 grams, so I have 46 grams left of yarn. So we shall see. That's why I started working on this sleeve. I thought, and put these ones on hold rather than carrying on and doing the colour work, because I figure if I get to the point where this is half an inch shorter than this one, at least I can frog this back to the same length and start the colour work in the same place. So that's what I'm currently doing. I am alternating my skeins, and it's working up really nice. I checked the length of the sweater again. It's kind of at cropped length. It looks okay the length it is if I was to put rib on it to go over the top of a dress, but I want more use out of it than just being able to wear it over a dress. So yeah, it's going to have colour work on the bottom, but that's okay, or an exceptionally long ribbon. I don't really want to do that. So once I've done this, what have I got to do today? I'm not sure. I'm feeling quite lazy today. The house is quite cold. It was cold outside this morning, not exceptionally so. I think it went down to about 6 degrees Celsius last night, and it's been 7 out there most of the morning. But there's no wind, so it doesn't feel too bad. But I'm struggling to get the house warm today. We're not at the point yet in the autumn where we keep the boiler lit all night. We have like a solid fuel boiler that runs our central heating, and we usually let it go out overnight when it's on, except for like over the winter months. And over the winter months it'll be banked up each night and kept on all through the winter. But we usually leave it as late as possible because there's no real need if we're asleep. But there will come a point where it gets too cold to wake up in the morning and the house is really cold, and it takes too long to then heat the house up, even if you light the fire first thing. It takes so long and so much fuel to warm the house up that you're better off kind of leaving it overnight and keeping the house at a reasonable steady temperature, if that makes sense. So I don't think it'll be too long. I think last year it was the back end of October, maybe the first week November. It was quite late. It was quite a mild autumn last year, and it's quite a mild one so far this year as well. We have had previous years when by the time we get to middle of October it's on overnight, but it's not too bad. But today the house feels cold, so I'm not sure what I want to do today. In reality I don't want to do anything else. Let's have cleaned and potted and things like that, but I'm not sure. I have the skirting board to varnish in the hallway. John took the low cupboard out down to the workshop and sanded and stained the top, so that looks much nicer. But while it's in the workshop I'd like to varnish the skirting board behind there, maybe this afternoon if I can be bothered. We shall see. But otherwise I don't know, I'm not really in the mood to sew. Maybe I will look up on YouTube as to how to use the buttonhole foot on my sewing machine, so I know what I'm doing. I'm still of two minds as to whether to just put fake buttons, which I often do. I have done that on one of my penny dresses where I've sewn buttons on, but the button placket is actually sewn down, so the buttons don't actually do anything, they're just for show. So that's a possibility if I can't be bothered. But I'd like this one to be able to wear as a kind of a long shirt, open shirt, as well as a dress, so I will likely have to make buttonholes. But that's a job for either later or for another day. And I'm sitting next to my spinning wheel here and I'm itching to do some spinning, but I really can't justify doing some of that when I have so many other crafty projects on the go at the moment. Right, I'm going to finish this little bit of knitting that I'm doing and then decide what to do next. So I'm currently sitting on the floor varnishing the architrave, which is what this bit of trim is that goes around the door frame, because I want to get this varnished so I can bring the cupboard up from the workshop, because once this cupboard's back in place here, it's going to be very difficult to do this edge. This bit be okay, but like down this edge where the wall is, when the cupboard's in place. I've already done the skirting board back here that I stained the other day. So once I've done this, I'm going to take the varnish down the workshop and varnish the cupboard top that John has restained for me. I would have brought the cupboard up and done it up here, but it is raining pretty heavy at the moment and I don't want to have the stain, the newly stained top, affected by raindrops, so it's easy just to take the varnish down the workshop. I will take the camera down the workshop actually, but I'll probably have to put it, hide it under my sweater whilst I run down the workshop with it, because I don't want to damage the camera. Obviously not on record. I'm really quite impressed with the difference between modern water-based or water-soluble varnish compared to varnish when I was a kid. I remember when I think I was about 7, we did a school project on the Vikings, because I'm from the north of England. The Vikings play a heavy part in history in the north of England. You know, they were invaded by the Vikings and such like. And we did this school project, and as part of it we made these little Viking boats out of pop balls, like big pop balls, 2-litre pop balls. Don't know what that is in English money. I mean in American money, like half-gallon pop balls. And we like cut one side out of them and laid them on the side to make these boats. And then we painted and varnished them as 7-year-olds, and it was awful stuff. It stunk and it was sticky and thick stuff. It wasn't this like nice thin goes on dead easy stuff. It was gloopy and horrible. And then of course you had to wash out your brush and your hands and everything afterwards with like white spirit as 7-year-olds. I'm sure health and safety would be like appalled these days, but I don't know, I used to like doing crafty things at school, as long as I didn't have to use my own imagination. You know, it was okay. It's like, these are your materials, this is what the project is, set to, or make something with these materials. If you know, if somebody was to put a load of stuff in front of me and said, you got to make such and such a thing, these are all the things you have to use, and you can only use these things, I'd be fine. But if somebody was to say, I want you to make such and such, go out and do it, I'd be really struggling to figure out in my imagination how I would do it, if that makes sense. So it's the same reason when it comes to things like painting, like a picture. If I was to say, oh, I want to paint such and such out of my head, I wouldn't be able to do it. But if you were to sit me down in front of, like, you know, draw and paint this that's in front of you, I could do that. Or at least I think I could. I used to be able to. I haven't painted for quite a long time. So I'm just going to get up off the floor now I've got a bit higher, finish off this architrave, and then take the varnish down the workshop, because I want the cupboard done. And like I was saying the other day, the door is not as much of a priority, so if I run out of varnish before I get to that, it doesn't matter, because I can varnish the door like a week or so from now, or 2 weeks or whatever. But the architrave needs doing so the cupboard can go back in, and once the cupboard goes back in, the other things can be done. So that's the priority. So I'm going to finish this off and then head down the workshop in the rain. So we're going to ignore the fact that my husband's workshop looks like a teenager's bedroom, but with tools and rubbish. And that we have a random lamppost in here. My husband's been repainting it and such like, because it's gotten a bit damaged whilst it was outside, and the glass has gotten cracked as well. But I've told him, instead of trying to wire it up, you should maybe just put some solar fairy lights in it. So it looks like we might be doing that. But it needs to be, now that it's been repainted, it actually wants concrete into the ground outside and amongst the trees, because the wind just blows it over. He did try and weight it down with rocks, but you know, kind of 60-mile-an-hour winds is the kind of normal winds. That's not even like the scary ones, that's normal, so it needs to be more secure. But I just need to move this cupboard slightly so that when I come out of this workshop, I'm not brushing against it on my way out the door, but trying to get it to stand up in here is tricky because there is stuff all over the floor as well. So the top's looking much better. I'll show you in a sec. All the varnish was already damaged before, so it's much better now. So yeah, it's nice and all one nice colour, and it's brought out the grain really nice, which is not really going to show very well on camera. We can kind of see the grain. I think it's oak, the top, but I'm not 100% sure. So give this a coat of varnish and then leave it to dry down here, and then when it comes up, if it's raining, all it'll just need is a dry cloth run over it and it'll be fine.